Hi, thanks for joining me. So, I was talking to somebody the other day about a topic about energy and how we exchange energy with other people. And as I helped her to see something from a different perspective, she said, would you be able to talk on this further? Would you be able to bring up this topic and make a video about it? Because she found it helpful for herself and she thought it might be helpful for other people going through a similar situation. So, as I've explained before about energy, we are all made up of energy. Every single one of us is made up of energy. And when we are around the same people all the time, we bounce off that energy. We get used to it. So, in a family situation, even like going back to when you're a couple, right? When you first get together, you're an individual living your life with your family. They're an individual living their life with their family. And then you come together. This is two energies coming together. And you have to get used to each other's energy because you have, one of you might be someone who goes out and spends all the time and has no control over money, and the other one is really tight with money. That's an energy, that's a kind of a frequency that you have. So when you're together, it can bounce because this person that likes to save a lot of money is trying to get the other one to stop spending, and the one that's spending is trying to get the other one to say, hey, you only live once, enjoy it. And it's so you start adjusting, you adjust your energy to their energy. And the same, so then when you're a couple and you get married and you decide to have children together, when you are a family unit, so let's say you've got mum, dad, and you've got 4 children. When your eldest child gets into their 20s and they meet a person that they're bringing into your family, now you've got to remember that you're a little family unit. Your energy is all, everyone's used to each other. Everyone's used to, if you can crack a joke at somebody and then they laugh, they understand because you're family and because you know each other so well, you don't get offended by it. You just accept that's who they are. You accept your siblings for who they are because you've grown up with them. You've spent the last 20, 25 years with them. So when all of a sudden one of the siblings brings in a partner, that partner has to get used to that family energy that you've all created. Now, if the partner has come from a family that didn't do anything together, they were very individual, they were kind of a loner and they had to make their own way in life, and then they merge with a family that do everything together, that can be very triggering for them because they don't really know how to fit in. They're trying to fit into that energy. And when you're in your 20s, you've already had 20 odd years to form your personality and form your belief system. So then when you're coming into a dynamic of a certain belief system of a family unit, it's very difficult. And I say this a lot to my own sons. I've got 5 sons and they all have partners. And I've said we have to understand that each partner that has come into our family dynamic has to sort of get used to us, because we can be strangers of family. We've got our own little idiosyncrasies, and we all bounce off each other's personality with our own energy, and they're coming into that energy that we've already created that's been there for 10, 20, 30 years. So it's kind of like allowing them to, if you can see that they're struggling with our family energy, trying to comfort them and keeping the communication open and saying, because I say to my daughter-in-laws all the time, I can be a real pain. I can say stuff that can be upsetting, or I can do things that annoy them. I know that about myself. And all they got to do is tell me. I will understand. I'm not going to take offense. I would rather someone tell me than get annoyed and then complain to my sons about me. Like, speak to me, because We are all annoying. All of us have annoying things that we do. Not one of us is perfect. So when you can look at other people, and if they do something that triggers you, rather than saying, I don't like that about them, ask yourself, when they're triggering you, why are you triggered? Why are you triggered by their actions? Why can't you just look at that person and say, well, that's just who they are? Why can't you do that? Why do you have to get so upset by something they say or something they do? That's because there's a need within you that's not being met. So if you're in any kind of, if like, it's sort of like, if for you as a family unit, when someone's coming in, it's also when you are trying to get used to a family that you're going into. And this can happen like right throughout life. If you're young, in your 20s, and you're just starting out with relationships, or if you've been through marriage and it's broken down, and then you're in your 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and you're dating again and you're looking to find a new partner, again, you're meeting someone who's already got their energy bubble. You know, they've got their energy bubble of their family, the way things are set up, and you're coming into that, and you have to try to get used to it. It is adapting. It is adapting to their energy bubble, and it can be difficult. So that's where you need to keep communicating and saying, like, I'm just struggling with this at the moment, you know. Let's just talk about it. Rather than getting so triggered and so defensive that you try to break the bubble apart. Because that's what a lot of people will do. They'll come into that family dynamic, and especially if they've come from a place where they didn't feel loved at all, their parents weren't there for them, you know, they were in a very scattered situation and they just wanted love. They finally found a partner, and if they've come into a family dynamic where everyone is very, very close, it can trigger them in sort of like a form of jealousy. It's a jealousy like, oh, look what they have, and I never had that growing up, and they have it. Rather than joining in with it and having it as well, like they're welcoming you into the family, and you can have that as well, and you can experience what they've always had. But some people go the opposite way and don't feel like they deserve it, and will try to break that apart. They want to see all those people that are loving and caring feel their pain. They want people to know their pain, and the only way they can get people to know their pain is to disrupt things, is to come into a family and cause people not to speak to each other and fights to start happening. And it's like they can say to themselves, see, now you know what I've been through. Now you know what my pain is. And again, this is choice, isn't it? It's free will. We can go either way. We always have that free will. But for my situation, I've always said to my boys, we've got to understand there's 5 different girls that have come into the family as your partners, and they've all come from totally different backgrounds. The way that their family unit that they've come from is totally different to our family unit, and they're coming into it. So we need to be aware of that. If they're having any issues with any of us, we just need to be aware of that. And just by being aware of it and helping each other out, it keeps things flowing rather than there being conflict. Because if you let things fester under the surface there, if you let things fester and fester and don't keep addressing it, it gets bigger and bigger, and it turns into a really big problem where people don't want to speak to one another and they want to break families apart. And I know most mothers that I've been in contact with, the one thing they never want to see is their own children not speaking to one another because of partners that have come in and caused conflict. Because a mum is the one that wants to hold it all together. The mum wants to see everyone loving each other. Or may I say most mums, because there is the exception out there where the mothers are the actual problem. But just generally speaking, most mums want to see their children happy, and they want to see everyone speaking to everyone, because conflict is a very, very, confrontation and conflict is a very difficult thing for a lot of people to face. They really can't speak up, or if they have a fear of speaking up and then having a fear of like someone taking it the wrong way, because not everyone is emotionally mature enough to take another person's opinion. It doesn't mean that person is right, but to listen to another person's opinion and accept that that is their opinion. It doesn't have to be right, just to say, okay, I understand your opinion. It's different to my opinion. I understand your opinion. But because we're family, we're just going to get along. We don't have to live out of each other's pockets. We just, you can just see each other, and when you do see each other and catch up, everyone is civil to one another. It doesn't mean you all have to be best friends just because you're all into the same family. It's just about getting along and looking at another person and saying, it's just where you're at. It's not where I'm at. I don't understand why you're doing what you're doing, but it's just where you're at. Because the more you look at someone and get so upset by their actions, and the more triggered you get, the more upset you get, and then it just becomes like a cycle where you just keep going around. You're affecting your own health. When you're upset and you're anxious and you can't control everybody around you, your own health starts to suffer. So yeah, it's a good topic. Just understanding that families have an energetic bubble that because they've been with each other for so long, they're so used to the way they operate. And they're all different. Every single family is different, the way they operate. And when you're coming into that situation, you have to adapt to it. And I grew up in a city, and I didn't even really know. When I was a teenager, I didn't know who my neighbours were. When I lived at my parents' place, I didn't know who my neighbours were. We didn't really, in the city, it was like you would just drive down the road and wave, but we never really got close to the neighbours. When I moved to a country town, everybody knew everybody, and that was something that I really had to adapt to. It was like I would sit at someone's place and they would know everybody's business. It was like this gossiping of so-and-so's doing this and so-and-so's doing that. And I used to sit there and think, how do you know all this stuff? Like, I didn't even know who was next door to me where I was living. And it was an adjustment, and not something I ever really wanted to participate in. But then I got to realise that's how they are. In the country, they look out for each other. They just show up at people's places there's no phone call. People just rock up and they just walk in the door, and it's that friendly. It's just who they are. And it took me, I'd say, years to really get used to people just showing up at my house and just walking in. Because in the city, that's just not how we grew up. In the city, there was always a phone call asking, are you going to be home, and arranging a time to call in. But that just didn't happen in the country. And it's not a right or wrong thing. It's just how people are. And it's like, I just thought, well, I'm living in the country now. This is the way they are. And I don't have to be like that. I don't have to be someone who just calls in and drops in on people, but I can accept that that's the way they are. And just by accepting that's the way they are, I didn't have to get all triggered about it and upset by it. So I don't know, it's a good topic just to think about. Like, think of your family, you and your kids and your little unit that you have together, and the dynamic you've got going on. And when one of your kids is ready to date or marry and bring someone into your family, just remember that they're coming into your little energy that you've created together, and they're probably coming from a very different energy bubble. So just be kind and help each other to navigate the situation. So thank you again for listening to me.